Welcome to the eShopperReviews podcast, episode 15.
This is the podcast for July 2022. I'm Jen Ip.
And I'm Jake McNeil.
For those new to this podcast, eShopperReviews is a subreddit on reddit.com where Jake reviews games on the Nintendo Switch platform. And you can find this subreddit at the URL reddit.com/r/eShopperReviews. We currently have over 1,900 reviews and counting, and we are supported by your donations on our Patreon, which you can find at patreon.com/eShopperReviews. This month's sponsors are Andy Miller, Xlenine, Johannes, Ilya Zarev, Connor Armstrong, Eli Goodman, KH, Christopher Wolf, Stove, and Gabriel Coronado Medina. Thank you all for keeping the reviews coming. Now let's go on to our patron-voted games, which this month is Klonoa Phantasy Reverie series.
I'm so proud of you. I don't think you made any major mispronunciations that entire time.
You have so little faith in me.
Last month you made a bunch of them. What are you talking about, little faith? I'm saying you did a better job. I'm pretty sure you said everything right this time. Well, I think it's Christopher Wolf, although I might be mistaken. I don't know. I've never heard them pronounce
Actually, it might be Christopher Wolf, but I always read it as Christopher.
Anyway, before we get to talking about Klonoa here, I just want to say we're recording this a little bit differently than we usually do. Jen couldn't make it over in person to record this for this particular recording. So we're kind of having to jerry-rig a solution here to still make sure that we get this done. On top of that, we did intentionally delay the recording of this just a little bit so that we could record this after the Nintendo Direct so we could talk about the Direct while we're recording this. So these are the reasons why you're kind of getting a bit of an unusual podcast this month. But anyway, back to Klonoa Phantasy Reverie series. This is actually a pair of remakes of a PlayStation game and a PlayStation 2 game. And these are, I think it'd be fair to describe them as cult classics. I've played both of them before on their original platforms. They are lovely, beautiful games. Like they're platformers with kind of a slight puzzle platformer element, and they are just so cute and adorable, and you just want to grab it up into your arms and give it a big hug. It's cute. It's very cute. But this release, Klonoa Phantasy Reverie series, is a remake of both of those games that improves the presentation, so hopefully it'll bring it up to modern standards. And both of these games, I feel, didn't get the attention they deserved in their original release, so hopefully releasing again on modern platforms will give them a new life that they didn't have before. So I'm really looking forward to playing these games, and once again, this was a month where we have multiple people who can vote on these on our Patreon, but this vote was decided by one person. So if you donate on our Patreon and you donate $5 or more, please take advantage of that and vote in our monthly poll, because this is your opportunity to influence the kinds of games that I review on the subreddit.
It's also kind of fun.
Yeah. And on the topic of voting... Oh, sorry. That's one of the things we're recording via Discord, so we have a bit of a lag here. So if we talk over one another, it's purely on accident. So sorry about that, Jen.
Well, I'm just saying, it's kind of fun to be able to choose what you're going to review.
And on that note, do you want to talk about next month's vote?
So we got a few, and I have a feeling I'm going to butcher the pronunciation.
But do try.
So next month's vote, we have Atelier Sophie 2, Card Shark, Bug Snash, Snack?
Snacks.
Bug
Snacks,
Snack.
like I'm eating snacks. The game is literally about you're going around in a world full of bugs that are also like types of food. I haven't played the other versions of it, but I hear it's very adorable and also like it's silly, but not Like there's hidden depths to it, as I understand.
Okay. Then Gotta Protector's Cart of Darkness. I
Yes.
have not heard of. Well, no, I've heard of the Atelier game,
Hmm.
but everything else, no.
So I've already talked about Bug Snacks. Atelier Sophie 2 is a sequel to not even the most recent Atelier games. Those were the Ryza games, and they're very well loved. But one of the earlier games in the franchise, Atelier Sophie 2, or sorry, 2 is a sequel to 1. I'm confusing myself here. And I don't know much about it, but given the huge, like, glowing responses to the Atelier Ryza games, hopefully they took kind of what they learned about those and are bringing it back to this sequel to this previous game. Card Shark, I don't know too much about, although I've heard good things. And it's like you're playing a guy who's cheating at cards, and you have to kind of a risk reward thing there. I don't know. I'm kind of in the dark on that, but it's in the poll, so if people want me to review it, I guess I will get introduced to it soon enough. And Gotta Protector's Card of Darkness is actually a sequel to, I want to say, I think it was a 3DS game. And kind of a little oddball. I think there were like tower defense elements. Again, I'm not terribly familiar with it, but that's part of the reason I toss them in here. It's I don't need to be familiar with it, but these are games that I've heard different people talking about from time to time, and it's like none of these games, at least to my memory, none of these games have been up for the vote just yet. And these are all games that released on the Nintendo Switch this year. So I'm like, okay, here's a chance for me to review some kind of offbeat, kind of different sort of games that maybe I haven't looked at yet. So if you donate $5 or more on the Patreon, here's your chance to point at one of these and say, that one. I want to hear you talk about that.
So, are we going to talk about highlights then?
Yes, on to highlights.
All right, so we're going to talk about highlights covered in the month of June 2022. These are not necessarily games released in June, but games that were reviewed in the last month. And we'll start by talking about, should we talk about the best games, the worst games, the hidden gems?
I don't know. You always shake it up and go at it from you start with something different every time. So I never know what you're feeling like.
Okay, we'll start with the worst games.
Okay, the worst games.
First one is Lock O Sports.
So I don't think any of the worst games this month like really upset me. I just didn't like them. They just weren't very good. And Loco Sports was, I mean, it's a low budget game. When you only pay a few bucks for a game, you generally don't expect much from it. But I mean, this is definitely one of those you get what you pay for kind of things. It's kind of Olympics themed, except for they don't say Olympics because I believe that's trademarked or it's a license.
That's
but
probably true.
It's pretty much a Summer Olympics game. And the thing is most of the games play very similarly. They're very simple. There's not much to them. And after just a few minutes of playing this game, you'll feel like, okay, I've seen everything this game has to offer. I'm bored. I don't feel any need to play any more of this again. And I have to imagine the creator of this game was some sort of amateur or didn't have much experience. And, you know, to any amateur creator on their first creation, you know, I wish them the best of luck. But if you are someone who is looking at games and actually wants to buy like an Olympic type game, yeah, don't get this one. It's not worth it.
Okay, next one is Please the Gods.
Please the Gods it's kind of billed as a card game, but it's a little bit more like a board game, but it has this very dour and depressing tone, and it's like I don't even know how to describe it. Your survival depends largely on random chance, and between that and just the depressing atmosphere behind this game, like as I was playing it, I kept having to fight the urge to be like, I just want to quit. I don't want to play this anymore. Why am I still playing this? And if any game is actively making me not want to continue playing it, that doesn't speak highly for the game. And maybe this game appeals to some people out there. Maybe some people will appreciate the depressing tone and don't mind all the randomness, but I have to imagine most people would just find it not fun the same way I did.
Oh, that's kind of sad to hear.
Yeah.
The last one for the worst games is Foot Goal Tiki Taki.
Foot Goal Tiki Taka.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. So, I spent a week reviewing sports games, and so 2 out of the 3 worst games for the month are kind of really low budget sports games. Foot Goal Tiki Taka is a foosball game. When you go to like a pizza
Yes.
parlor or a mini golf place, usually they'll have one of these tables in the place where you can spin around the little guys and kick the ball, and it's a 2-player thing. Same basic idea, but this game, it seems like it's a really amateurish work, which, if the creator's an amateur, I don't mean to besmirch, the effort that went into this. I try not to ever like outright trash a developer who put hard work into their game, but the end result just is not very fun. You don't have as much control over your little guys as you'd like. Like, you can't spin them independently. You're kind of spinning them all at once. And on top of that, there is very little in the way of options. The physics are kind of off. It's just not fun. Better luck next time to the developer of this game. What can I say?
Okay, let's move on to the hidden gems then.
Sure thing.
First one I got to play with you, which is
Yes.
Disc Jam.
I really like Disc Jam, and
I did too.
I think it's a shame that the online lobbies for this one are pretty much dead, because the game itself is delightful. It's kind of like, I want to say it's like a disc golf, almost like a take on Pong or tennis, where your characters are like, it's a team-based sport, or it's potentially team-based. You can have 1 versus 1 or 2 versus 2. It's kind of like tennis, where you're trying to get your frisbee past the other player and to the other side where it will count as a goal. And there's more complex strategies. You can rebound it off the walls. You can try and curve it. You can block it so that it just falls right immediately in front of you next to the net. And it's simple and straightforward, but at the same time, there's a lot of nuance to it, which I feel like is really what you want to look for in a sports game. It's got to be something that's accessible but has depth, and this game does that very well. At least I thought so. What do you think, Jen? You played it.
I thought it was very finicky. Like, the controls of it, I thought the timing was kind of off. Overall, the concept is really fun, but it could do with a little bit of tinkering.
Some of the more advanced techniques that they have you going through in the tutorial, like one of the people that we were playing with Sin, and I remember Sin had the darndest time trying to do some of the more advanced techniques. And yeah, it really requires precise timing to do those. But on the bright side, you don't have to do those in order to play. You can just do the basic stuff.
Yes, you can. But, you still want to, try and do the harder stuff, Okay, next one is Pure Mini Golf.
Pure Mini Golf is super cheap. It's only $4. But for a $4, very simple game, I thought it was just really wonderful. It's chill and relaxing. And if you're looking for a cheap mini golf game on Nintendo Switch, this is pretty much exactly what you would want. It's very simple. It's all top down. It's just judging the angle and trying to, rebound it off of corners to get it into the hole. It's fairly forgiving because there's usually a good amount of space around the hole where if it falls into that space, it'll count as a hole, or I'm not sure what it's called. It's not called a goal. It's usually is it just called a hole? I don't know.
I think so. Yeah. Hole in one,
I need to stop messing with the cord here. I think I'm creating noise.
I'm not hearing any noise.
Except a hole in one is if you get it in one. What's it called if you just get it in like 3 or something? I don't know.
I can't remember.
Well, I'm not talking specifically that. I'm talking about just a number other than 1. Because a hole in 1 is a hole in 1. What is a hole in X?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We've already spent too long talking about this, I'm sure. Anyway, pure mini golf. It's very simple. It's very cheap. But for a simple, cheap mini golf game, this is relaxing. It's enjoyable. I highly recommend it if you just want to put a few bucks towards a golf game.
All right. Last one for the hidden gems is Disc Room.
Yes. I had one day where I reviewed disc games, and the funny thing is Disc Room does not play at all like Disc Jam. Disc Room is a single-player experience, and the premise is really simple. You have your little guy who's stuck in a room, and there are a bunch of whirling blades going around the room, and you just have to stay in the room as long as you can without getting killed. And more blades appear and more blades appear. And again, very simple premise. But what's really great about this game is that it builds on this premise with its level progression, where to get from room to room, you don't have to beat that room. You have to meet certain criteria. For example, in order to open one door, you might have to get killed by 5 different types of blades. Or you might have to beat a certain score in 3 of the other rooms. Or all kinds of different goals that actually make you go back and revisit rooms you've already completed because you want to clear those goals. Anyway, Disc Room, really simple fun, but the level progression just really nails it and makes it something more than that.
Okay, so we can move on to the best games.
Let's do that.
Neon White, which I think you showed me a little bit of.
I did show you a little bit of Neon White. This was a huge surprise for me. Actually, one of my best surprises so far this year. This is technically a first-person shooter, although I actually think it's more about the platforming than the shooting in this game. The idea is you're trying to go through each of the game's levels, kill all of the enemies, and get to the exit as quickly as possible. But killing the enemies isn't really the challenge here. The enemies are usually, they're stationary, they're not doing much. I mean, some of them can attack you, but they're super predictable. So it's less about, beating difficult enemies than it is knowing about how to move, where to move, and doing it in the quickest, most efficient way possible. And this game uses an aesthetic where it is you're getting cards as weapons, which is kind of odd because the cards all represent real life weapons. One card is an AK-47, one card is a handgun, that kind of thing. But it uses these in a creative way because each card, you can use it just as a weapon, or you can discard the card, get rid of it, and when you do that, it'll give you a traversal ability. So if you discard a handgun, then that gives you a midair jump. If you discard a rifle, it's a midair dash. And so a part of the strategy of each level is knowing when and how to discard these cards. And the level design is immensely good. It will give you a weapon and it knows that this is the last weapon you got. It's the weapon that's queued up for you, so it's what you're going to use next if you're doing it properly. So you can just boom, 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 hit one after another, and super speed your way to the exit. And on top of that, there's all kinds of little hidden secrets where, again, you have to be smart about using these traversal abilities. And this is definitely a game where you'll finish a level and you'll go right back into that same level and be like, I can do better than that. I can beat my previous time. Or maybe you'll start a level and 5 seconds in, you'll be like, oh, nope, I need to do better than that, and just restart it. And I'm not usually the kind of player who likes fast-paced first-person shooters. Normally, I tend to prefer more slow and methodical games. I like to be sneaky. I like to hide in the corners and duck out from behind cover to shoot enemies. And this game is like the polar opposite of that. And I still love it. And that to me says something about the quality of this game. And also, just moving around in this game is super fun. It's super speedy. The controls are really good. If you prefer gyroscopic motion controls, this game supports that. But if you're just using traditional gamepad controls, they're very good here too. I cannot say enough good things about this game. It's my favorite game that I played in this last month, which is super surprising to me because there was another game that I was actually looking forward to a bit more, which ended up also being really good, and we'll be getting to in just a moment.
Well, the next one I got to play with you.
Yes.
Which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge.
By this point, I'm sure everyone has heard all the raves about this game. Like, it is getting glowing reviews from everyone. So I'm not being very original in saying, yes, it is very, very good. It is one of the best arcade brawlers that has ever been made. Having said that, I don't feel like it plays quite like the old school Ninja Turtles games. Like, with those ones, I felt like a lot of the gameplay was jumping into and out of range of enemies. You know, jumping in, doing a kick attack, jumping out. And with this game, I feel like it's more about dodging and doing the snapback attack. Like, you dodge and then you can immediately attack after that. Or it's about charging up your special and then using your special. Although I've seen some people complaining that the game makes it too easy to spam that, to just use your taunt to charge your special and then use your special and then go and taunt again. But regardless, it's tons of fun. There's a good variety to the gameplay, good variety to the enemies, and that core gameplay works so very well. I don't know how I would rank games in this genre at this point, but this is definitely top tier. Like, I would put this in the same realm as I would put other greats of the genre, which, for those wondering, the original Ninja Turtles games, the original 2 arcade games, are pretty high up there. Streets of Rage 4, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and Castle Crashers. Those are the games that I would say are top tier arcade brawlers. This one is right up there with them. It is that good.
I personally loved this game. I think I would get used to the controls if I had a bit more time. I am not used to these type of games, so that's probably why I struggled with it. But anyway, next up.
You did okay when I played it with you.
I did okay. The next one we have is Diablo Primeval Collection.
So, Diablo Primeval Collection is kind of an interesting case where this is one of the best games on the Nintendo Switch by default. And how do I explain that? Okay, so this is a collection that includes Diablo 3 Eternal Collection and Diablo 2 Resurrected. Diablo 3 Eternal Collection is, I firmly believe, one of the best games on Nintendo Switch. It is incredibly good. It's an amazing port. It's a great game. Excellent co-op play. You know, good local co-op, good online. The graphics transitioned well to the Nintendo Switch. Like, everything in the Nintendo Switch version of this game is fantastic, wonderful, and it's well suited to Nintendo Switch. Diablo 2 Resurrected, on the other hand, I was not a big fan of. I feel like the controls are clunky, the graphics look dated, the gameplay is dated, the actual controls work really poorly on the Nintendo Switch. They do not feel like they are suited to a gamepad. I feel like this was a game that was magnificent back in the day, but time has not been kind to it at all. I do not care for it. However, this is a collection of these two games, and what makes it one of the best games on Nintendo Switch by default is the Diablo Primeval Collection is the same price as Diablo 3 Eternal Collection is on its own. So this is
Ooh.
basically, you are getting Diablo 3 and they're tossing in Diablo 2 for free, more or less. I mean, it's an oversimplification, but it's like, if I say that Diablo 3 is an absolute must-have Nintendo Switch game, one of the best games on Nintendo Switch, and the Diablo Primeval Collection is that plus some more stuff, then by default, that makes this game better than Diablo 3 Eternal Collection, even though what it's adding is something that I don't think is very good. But you're getting that something more for free, so yeah, that's what I'm getting at here.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
the next one we have is Fire Emblem Warriors.
So I reviewed two Fire Emblem Warriors games this month, Fire Emblem Warriors and Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, the new game that just released. And I consider both of those to be two of the best games I've reviewed this month. I would give the edge to Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes because the story in the original Fire Emblem Warriors, it plays out like a really bad fan fiction based on the franchise. And Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, kind of the story is more like an alternate take on the events within Fire Emblem Three Houses, except this is kind of a what if scenario, asking what if instead of following the story of Byleth in that game, you're following the story of this new character who's a rival to Byleth, and maybe there's some kind of mysterious, not so great stuff going behind the scenes that's, maybe Byleth is evil, and I don't know. Anyway, both of these games are really good blends of the Muso genre, where you're fighting hundreds of people at a time, that kind of action, and kind of more strategic elements that are, kind of callbacks to the Fire Emblem series, where you're directing all of your people. You can pause the game at any time and be like, okay, you go over here, and you go over here, and you go around this way. And it also incorporates elements like, what is it? Axes are weak to swords, and swords are weak to spears, and spears are weak to axes, the weapon triangle, as they call it, that kind of stuff. So it does a really good job incorporating those series elements into the Muso genre, and it just makes for an overall excellent, fun game.
Well, I think that was all the best games for this month.
Yep.
Okay. Well, you have two noteworthy reviews, though.
Yes.
The first one is Sonic Origins.
This was the Patreon patron voted game for this month. And I have such mixed feelings on this because, okay, this is a compilation that includes Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles, and Sonic CD. And these are all very good ports of these games that are arguably the best versions of these games. I can't quite say they're the definitive versions because other versions have included features that aren't present here, but these are possibly the best versions of these games. And it's particularly of note because Sonic 3 and Knuckles is not often re-released. So it's really great that we got that and Sonic CD on the Nintendo Switch. However, if you're any kind of Sonic the Hedgehog fan, you probably already own Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 on the Switch by this point. In fact, you may very well own them multiple times over because both games have been released multiple times in multiple places on the Nintendo Switch. And given that this is a $40 collection, for half of the games in it to already be games that you probably own if you're interested in this collection, that's not great. And on top of that, for them to be doing this like multi-tiered release where you need to pay extra to get all the features in the game, that's also really kind of sleazy. And it makes it harder to recommend this game, which is a shame because the content of this game is genuinely very good. I highly recommend it. And it has good features, there's a good amount of options, but the way they went about releasing this, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. So I can't quite put it in my best games for the month. I definitely can't put it in my worst games for the month. It's somewhere in between. It has really good stuff in it, but I'm just not sure it's worth the money and the monetization that they put in this game.
Okay, so hopefully on a more happier, noteworthy game, we have Fall Guys, which we got to play as well.
Fall Guys I liked. I wouldn't say I liked it enough to put it in my best games for this month, and I don't think it's so obscure that it would really be suited to my hidden gems. Um, I'm kind of, again, split on Fall Guys as well. I like Fall Guys. I think it is a good, fun game. However, I don't like how clumsy the controls are. I think the game is kind of built around them, so that's kind of baked in. However, probably my biggest problem with the game is I think the port to Nintendo Switch is not a very good port. It has all kinds of frame rate and performance issues. It's not a horrible port, but it definitely feels lacking.
The next topic is Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Packs Nintendo 64 app release for June 2022, which includes Pokemon Snap, and then Super Nintendo app releases for June 2022 is Kirby Superstar SP, Kirby's Dream Course SP, and Kirby's Dream Land 3 SP. And the Sega Genesis app releases for 2022 include Comic Zone, Mega Man the Wily Wars,
Wily Wars,
Target Earth, and Zero Wing.
Okay, I'll take these one by one real quick. Pokemon Snap, graphically, it does not look all that great these days. Of course, we've been spoiled by new Pokemon Snap, which is gorgeous. But gameplay-wise, it's still fantastic. It holds up really, really well. It's unique. It's fun. It's got kind of a puzzle element, but there's also kind of a skill element to where you need to aim just right, and you need to know, okay, where am I going to throw the Pokeballs to, or the Pester Balls, or I don't know. And it's just really fun, a really great exploration of the Pokemon world. Obviously, I feel like it's been superseded by the sequel, but that doesn't make the original game any less fun. And if you have the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, this is one of the best games that's been released for it so far. Jen, did you ever play Pokemon Snap, the original one?
I did, but I didn't play it extensively. I played it at my cousin's house, but I always loved it. And if it weren't for the first one, we wouldn't have a sequel. So,
Yeah, we can thank it for that. But like I said, even though I do like the sequel more, this one is still very, very good. And I'm glad that we got it added to the Nintendo 64 app. And this marks the final Nintendo 64 game that we have announced as of this time. They have not made any further indications what other Nintendo 64 games we might get. So who knows? The Super Nintendo app releases, it's kind of a head scratcher because you would think if they were going to do a big Kirby thing, they would have done it the month that they released Kirby and the Forgotten Land. So I'm not sure why they waited until the middle of the year to do this. And on top of that, these are all releases. Okay, so the SP releases are releases of games that were already on the app, but they're special versions that do something a little different. In this case, these are all versions that unlock content that you would normally get by playing through and completing the games or completing game modes. And Kirby games are not known for being difficult. If you really are having problems unlocking the content in these games, I'm not sure that I don't know what's going on with you here, but so the value of these SP versions I feel like is somewhat dubious. On the other hand, the Sega Genesis app releases for June 2022, I feel like this is quite possibly the best little chunk of games that we've gotten for that app since the app was first released. This is, okay, going through one by one, Comic Zone is a decent kind of fun action platformer. You know, you're fighting other characters in a comic booky kind of setting. Um, it was already on Nintendo Switch in the Sega Genesis Classics collection, I believe. But it's okay. Target Earth is kind of a unique, interesting take on the action platformer genre, and it has some issues with stiff controls, but it's still pretty good. However, the two highlights here. First, Mega Man The Wily Wars is a compilation of remakes of the first three Mega Man games. And while I feel like the controls are a little more stiff than the actual original games, they're still wonderful, wonderful games. And it's really cool seeing them remade in this new 16-bit style, you know, with the improved graphics and sound. However, what I feel is the standout game for this set of releases is Zero Wing. And Jen, I know you've probably never heard of the game Zero Wing, but you
I
have
haven't.
almost certainly heard of the meme that it spawned. Jen, stop me if you've heard this one before. All your base are belong to us.
Oh.
Yes, that came from this game. You know,
I see.
all of that ridiculous localization, that was a Zero Wing thing. The thing is, when you put aside the jokes and the memes, this is actually a really great shmup game. It's a really great side-scrolling space shooter. And it's a bit on the easy side, and there's lots of slowdown, but it's just all around a great shmup. And if you're a fan of the genre, this is definitely going to be the highlight for this month. But all in all, actually, I'd say a pretty solid month for Nintendo Switch Online's like different game apps. Like really good stuff in this month. I hope this continues, although Nintendo loves to disappoint.
Okay. Can we jump to the thing I really, really, really want to talk about, though?
Yes, let's.
Can we talk about Nintendo Direct Mini?
I kind of hinted at it
Partner
earlier.
Showcase? Yeah.
Yeah, let's go through it. Do you want to just talk about your favorites, or do you want to go through it one by one?
Okay, one by one. Okay, I'm just going down the list. Monster Hunter Rise, Sunbreak.
So, okay, Monster Hunter Rise, Sunbreak. Your thoughts?
Please.
Whenever Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak comes up, I kind of stop paying attention, not because I don't have any interest, but because it's like I need to actually complete the original Monster Hunter Rise before I can commit to the expansion, and I don't want to spoil myself for it. I already know I want it. It's just I'm not going to get it anytime soon because I know I still got a lot of the original game left to play. So I know that it has kind of a more European theming to it, where the original game was kind of like a feudal Japanese theme. But beyond that, I'm kind of like, okay, I don't need to see too much about that. I already know I want it, and it's in my future.
Yes, it's in my future too. Next up is Nier Automata, The End of Your Ha Edition, which comes out October 6th, 2022.
So this one was already rumored prior to the Direct, but this is a game. It's made by the folks at Platinum Games, the guys who make Bayonetta and Astral Chain, and this game is well regarded within its genre. It's, you know, a great kind of action game with RPG elements, or so I hear. I have not actually played it yet, which I know makes me a terrible person, I'm sure. But I've heard so much good stuff about the Nier series, and Nier Automata in particular is real, like everybody loves it. Everybody who's played it has nothing but good things to say about it. And I've heard that they are cutting the frame rates in half for the Nintendo Switch release, so it's going down from 60 frames per second to 30, which hopefully should be fine. I don't know, we'll see. As long as they get the game actually running smoothly, it could still be good. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping they do a good job with it.
Next one is Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, 2023, by the way.
I didn't come away with any strong impressions of this one. It seemed
I feel the same way. I don't really remember much of it either.
I mean, it seemed vaguely interesting, but it didn't wow me.
Right. Okay. So the next one is Super Bomberman R2 coming out 2023.
I don't know why they felt the need to announce this now. It's not like it's a super major release. It's not coming out anytime soon. And the funny thing is the original Super Bomberman R was not especially liked even by series fans. So why they would feel the need to be like, hey, you got to get yourself ready because in a year we're going to be releasing the sequel to a game that you didn't really like all that much. And eh. I
Eh.
I didn't hate Super Bomberman R, but I didn't love it, and yeah, not feeling super excited about it. So, yeah.
Next one is Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection coming in 2023.
I am so glad that they announced this for multiple reasons. Number one, I know that a lot of fans of the series were really pulling for this to get released on Nintendo Switch. Like, oh, all the Mega Man series, all the Mega Man collections are great. They need to bring over the two that people have always been asking for is the Battle Network series and the Legends series. So one wonders if maybe after this we might get Legends, but that's maybe next year. But Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection includes all 6 numbered games in the series, including the alternate versions, because I think from, I want to say 3 on, they released 2 versions of each of the games, like a Pokemon thing. And this is great for multiple reasons. Number one, they're awesome games. But number two, because I'm going through and reviewing Wii U and 3DS games, and these games are all on the Wii U Virtual Console, this means that I'm going to save $40 on Virtual Console games this year because I don't have to get them because I know they're coming to Switch.
Fair.
Yeah.
Next one is Pac-Man World Repack 8/26/2022.
Looks nice. I mean,
It looks okay. I've never been a big Pac-Man person.
Well, on top of that, you're not a big platformer person. This is a
I am
platformer
not.
starring
Yes,
Pac-Man.
that is a platformer.
I mean, it looks good. I never played the original Pac-Man World, and I didn't know that there was any huge demand for a remake of it, but hey, I hope that if there are people who still have a lot of love for it, I hope that they're super excited about this. It looks good. I don't know what else to say about it.
One that I am very curious about is Blanc, coming to Switch as a console exclusive in February 2023.
Blanc looked really adorable. I really like the art style. I like the cutesy character designs for you're playing as, what was it, a deer and a wolf, something like that?
Yes, they're both babies.
And I'm kind of curious how the co-op will work because they said that this game would have co-op play too. So
yeah,
it looks really nice. I love the stylized look. Definitely looking forward to it.
coming at some point this year is Return to Monkey Island.
This is a game that had been announced previously, but this was the first actual footage we've seen of it. And I'm not crazy about the art style for this. I kind of prefer the old art style for the older games. And the sad thing is, I know there are a lot of other fans out there who feel the same, but a lot of those fans apparently took to harassing Ron Gilbert on Twitter after this announcement. Basically, he felt the need to disable comments on his Twitter because people were being so abusive with their comments. And it's like,
That's a shame.
you know, I can say I'm not a fan of the art style without going and harassing the developer of the game over it. It's, come on, guys, be better.
Next one, which I'm actually very curious about. It's not my type of game. It's Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, coming out October 20th, 2022.
Now, this is a game we've known about for a while, but this is the
Yes.
first time we have gotten a release date. And Interesting that it's coming out in October because this was previously kind of an empty slot in Nintendo's release schedule. They didn't have anything major coming out that month. And they still might have something else coming out because usually Nintendo likes to have a first party release, and Mario plus Rabbids is technically not first party. It's being developed by Ubisoft or Ubisoft, however it's pronounced. The original Mario plus Rabbids was very good. The sequel looks excellent as well. It looks like it's more or less just an evolution of what we already saw in the first game. I'm looking forward to it. It looks good.
This next game is already out now. It's called Little Noah, Scion of Paradise, which I'm actually curious about.
I don't have any strong thoughts about this one. It didn't really make a big impression on me, so I don't know what to say there.
Okay. Coming out in autumn 2022 is Railgrade.
I love my management sims, and seeing the multi-level, like all the complex spaghetti of railways like interconnecting in this one. Oh, I'm looking forward to this. This looks like it could be fun.
Okay, I have this thing about simulation games.
Mm-hmm.
If it is not aesthetically pleasing to me, I will not touch it. And the industrial look is the farthest you could probably go with my aesthetic tastes.
Mm-hmm.
So while it is a simulation management game, I probably won't touch it.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, this one's coming out fairly soon, August 18th, 2022, and it is RPG Time: The Legend of Right.
It's funny. This game looks very similar to the Plucky Squire or something like that, which is similarly kind of, it has this, it's scribbled in a notebook kind of look. And I feel like a lot of people were really charmed by the Plucky Squire, and I have to feel like the introduction of this game after that one was shown off like a few weeks prior, that's unfortunate timing. But RPG Time still looks good. I'll look forward to seeing how it turns out.
Next up, coming winter 2022, is Sonic Frontiers.
Now, this one we've already seen a good amount of, but this was new footage that they showed, and I feel like just about everyone came away from this footage with a couple of different impressions, which was, number one, some of the locations that they showed in this footage actually look like a Sonic game, unlike all the other stuff we've seen about this game.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah. A lot of people were really frustrated with it. It's like in the previous footage they showed, it's like, okay, you're in a grassy world with a blue sky, which looks nice, but it looks really generic. And in this footage, they actually showed off a grassy world with that kind of checkerboard look that we associate with Sonic games. There was a brief moment where it showed Sonic in this kind of high-tech cyberspacey kind of place that looked really cool. And I think a lot of people are scratching their heads at the way that Sega seems to be dropping the ball on presenting this game, because it's like they are really failing to highlight some of the best elements of this game. On the other hand, the other thing that a lot of people have said is basically it's a foregone conclusion that the Nintendo Switch version is probably going to perform the worst out of all of them. And this trailer seemed to underscore that. There was pop-in the earlier trailers, but you could definitely see it here too. And yeah, not great. Hopefully they can polish it up in time for release, but I feel like keeping your hopes high for any Sonic game is just a recipe for disappointment. So I hope that it's good, but I'm not going to hold my breath. I will wait to see what it looks like when it releases.
Coming as early access September 6, 2022, is Disney Dreamlight Valley.
This is another one that they had already announced previously, but it's funny, they had announced it being a 2023 release, and it's interesting to see it get moved up, but in early access. And I'm kind of like, it's Disney. should we really have a Disney branded game in early access? I kind of feel like Disney, you're a big enough corporation, you don't need to release stuff in early access. Just polish the game and release it as a finished product.
That would be nice.
But they're kind of going for, I don't know, like The Sims or like an Animal Crossing thing, but with Disney and Pixar characters, and it could be good. I don't know.
I am very tentative about this
Mm-hmm.
because I smell microtransactions. I just smell them. I'm sorry. I see it being used.
It would not surprise me in the least. Like, oh, hey, if you want to unlock these characters, just get them in a loot box.
Exactly.
Oh, you want these decorations for your house? Well, hopefully you get it in that loot box. Yeah, I could totally see that.
Mm-hmm. Next one is coming 7/22/2022. Live Alive.
Again, I think it's pronounced Live Alive, but I do not blame you for that because it is a confusing title.
Yes, it is.
So this is another one we already knew about prior to this direct. However, they took this as an opportunity to announce that they were releasing a demo on the eShop where you can play 3 of the 7 main characters of the game. You can start out their stories and you can save the game, and then that save will transition into the full game when it releases. It looks great. I am looking forward to this one. I mean, the HD 2D look that they've used for Octopath Traveler and Triangle Strategy looks great in this game. This is technically a remake of a classic Super Nintendo game or Super Famicom game that was never released outside of Japan. So for them to finally be bringing this game to the West and to be giving it such a beautiful remake treatment, I'm thrilled. I'm looking forward to this.
Next up is Doraemon's Story of Seasons, Friends of the Great Kingdom, coming sometime in 2022.
This is actually the second Doraemon or Doraemon. I don't know how. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong.
It's the little blue creature.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit like a Ghibli-esque kind of thing, but it's a super popular franchise in Japan, I know. And there's actually been a previous game in this, like they combined the Doraemon character and the Story of Seasons franchise in a previous game that I've already reviewed on Nintendo Switch. So this is kind of like the sequel to that. And the previous game was good, kind of a good kind of Harvest Moon, Stardew Valley kind of game. I don't think it was the best game in the genre, but it was good. And I expect the sequel to probably be pretty good too.
Next up is Minecraft Legends 2022. And quite honestly, I'm a little bit done with Minecraft trying to redo itself.
It's coming out in 2023.
Oh, sorry, 2023.
And
yes.
So, number one, we already knew about this game. It was actually previously announced in Microsoft's, like Microsoft and Bethesda had a big announcement thing where they announced a bunch of games. And this was already announced then, and they even revealed that it would be coming to Nintendo Switch then. So it's not really anything new that we're seeing it here. For Minecraft, I love the original Minecraft, but unlike you, I'm not sick of Minecraft. I'm sick of these spin-off games. Like, I still want to have a graphically updated version of Minecraft with like ray tracing and stuff. And I know you can technically mod the game on PC to get that, but I also seem to recall seeing that like you either need to have a super powerful machine or it will turn your game into a slideshow. And it's like, come on, with modern platforms, especially like the Xbox Series X, I feel like you could get ray tracing in that game. I don't want Minecraft spin-off or Minecraft spin-off. I want either an improved version of the original game or I want an actual sequel. So, I don't know. I'm not going to write this one off, but it definitely doesn't excite me.
Coming out December 9th, 2022 is Dragon Quest Treasures.
This was a game that had been announced before, but we didn't know when it was coming or whether it was coming to Switch. Now we have a confirmation, and it looks good. I wasn't terribly excited by this footage, but at the same time, I wasn't terribly excited seeing Dragon Quest Builders 2, and that turned out to be an incredibly good game. So I feel like I don't want to write off any Dragon Quest spin-off prior to playing it, because who knows, it could be the next, like, oh, this is way better than I thought it would be kind of thing.
All right, this game is out now. Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes.
Yeah, I think that with this, they were taking the opportunity to talk about how they were going to be doing season pass content or something like that. And okay, I obviously really like the game. I said it was one of the best games I reviewed this month, but I'm one of those people who, for most games, I can't get excited about season pass content, especially when we haven't even seen it, because I so rarely complete a game in the first place. And it's like, if I'm not going to complete this game, why would I get excited about more content for it? Nah.
Next up, coming 10/7/2022, No Man's Sky.
We've known about this one for a while. The date got announced a week or two prior to this direct, so it's not really anything that's news. It's just reminding you, hey, this is on the way, it's coming up, and I'm really curious to see how this performs on the Switch, because it's a massive game, and I don't know how that will transition to Nintendo's handheld. I have heard that they are not going to have all the multiplayer features present at launch. And while that's kind of disappointing, at the same time, I am kind of glad to hear them say that, because one of the things that really hurt this game when it first came out was that the creators behind the game would basically lie their faces off about all the features that it was going to have when it came out, and it clearly was never intended to. Now,
Nope.
Since then, it is my understanding that they have vastly improved the game, and as it is now, I am told that it is a lot closer to what they originally promised, and then some. So that has me really eager to play it on Nintendo Switch, and the fact that they are being honest about what is not present in this game on Switch tells me that maybe all that other stuff that, other versions of the game have is going to transition fine, hopefully, fingers crossed. I don't know, we'll see, but I'm very much looking forward to playing it.
Next one, coming out 10/18/2022 as a cloud version, A Plague Tale Requiem.
This is another one we've known about for a while. I'm not sure if we knew the release date before this. I think we did. And we also knew that it was going to be a cloud version. And while I will complain about cloud versions of games often, this is one where it's kind of understandable. Like, graphically, this is a really intense game. I can't imagine them doing a direct port of this game to Nintendo Switch without doing a cloud version. So this is a game where if they were not doing a cloud version, it probably would not be coming to Nintendo Switch. So I'm not going to complain about that too much in this case.
Coming 7/28/2022, Captain Velvet Meteor, The Jump Plus Dimensions.
I did not have any strong impressions about this coming out of the direct.
I did not either. Out now, however, is the Portal Companion Collection.
This one had been announced prior to the direct, but we didn't have a release date for it, and they shadow dropped it. And I've not had the chance to play it yet. I'm sure I will get around to it at some point. But early impressions that I've heard, well, not impressions, but reviews and all that kind of stuff, is that it is an excellent port of these games, which is good, because if you have not played Portal yet, if somehow you've missed it, and I cannot fathom how you could have missed playing Portal, or its sequel, Portal 2, both of these games are incredibly good. They are they're first-person puzzle games where the main premise is you have a portal gun, you can create portals on a wall, a blue one and an orange one, and one leads to the other, and you have to use that to solve puzzles, which seems really simple, but the way that they integrate that with the physics of the game, the sense of humor they have with the characters in the game, the creativity and the level design, just, magnificent. Like, these are some of the best games ever made, period. And it is wonderful that we have them on the Nintendo Switch, and it's wonderful that they're feature complete. They have the co-op that was in Portal 2, and from everything I'm hearing, the ports are excellent ports. I am ecstatic. I haven't gotten it yet because it hasn't gone on sale yet, and you know me, I like to get my sales, but I look forward to actually getting it when it does.
So this one I am excited about.
I knew you would be. When I saw this, I was like, oh, this is a game that Jen is going to be super interested in. This was the one game out of all of the games revealed in this direct, I was like, this one looks cool, and I know Jen's going to think exactly the same, because, say it with me now, this looks like Rune Factory, yeah? Yeah? And I know that we were both disappointed to hear, we have not played Rune Factory 5 yet, but
No, we
apparently when it came out earlier this year, reviews basically said it's a mess. It's a horrible mess. I've not played it yet, so I can't speak to that myself, but that's what I'm hearing, and that is a huge disappointment because I love this franchise. So Square Enix basically did a hold my beer. They're like, oh, so apparently you can't do a really good looking modern kind of Rune Factory sort of game. Why don't we give that a try? And it looks beautiful. I am super looking forward to it. It looks great. Out of all of the new games, the new titles that had not previously been announced in any form, that aren't ports or anything, this is the one that most interested me in this direct, I feel.
I am excited, but I am also withholding my excite because I don't want to be disappointed.
Yeah, I can get that. I mean, I always withhold my judgment until after I've played a game, but just from the way it looks, I'm super interested. I hope it meets its potential because it looks really nice.
Okay, so we have 3 Persona games, apparently.
Yeah, when Xbox had their direct or their announcement, their showcase, whatever we're calling it, they made the surprise announcement that Persona 3, 4, and 5 were all coming to the Xbox platform. And that had people on Nintendo Switch basically saying, if they don't port those to Nintendo Switch, it's like Atlas is just telling Nintendo Switch owners they hate them. Because fans of the Persona series have been begging for these games to come to Nintendo Switch for ages, for years. Heck, since the Switch first came out, people have been like, can we get Persona on Switch? And Atlas has been, oh my, they've been teasing people something fierce because it's like every year, maybe every 6 months or so, they put out a poll saying, hey, would you like to see these games on Switch? And Persona's always on it. It always gets a ton of people saying, yes, we want that. And Atlas basically saying, okay, well, here's this Persona spinoff. You want that, right? Right? You want that Persona fighting game? Or how about this Persona music game? Or how about this Persona Muso game? And the thing is, all those spin-off games are really good, and I'm glad they're on Switch, and it's great, but it's not what people have wanted. It's not what people have been screaming for. And so these 3, they're massive, slick, really stylish, wonderful RPGs, and oh, it is wonderful to see that Nintendo Switch owners will finally be able to get them. And not just get them, but it's like the best versions of them. It's Persona 3 Portable, Persona 4 Golden, and Persona 5 Royal, which I believe all of them are coming with all of the expansion content and all of that. So finally, after all of this waiting, we are finally getting Persona on the Nintendo Switch. It's about time. Ugh.
Jeez, you're very excited about this.
Well, it's not necessarily me. Like, I'm super interested, especially because, and this is probably going to really paint people's opinions of me, I've never actually played a Persona game. Not one of the mainline games anyway. But
okay.
I keep hearing about how they're really good, how they're amazing. They're some of the best games in the JRPG genre. And I know that so many people have been dying for these games to come to Switch. So the excitement you hear in my voice isn't necessarily mine. It's reflecting how many people have been begging for this for so long. So it's great that finally people will get what they've been begging for, and like their prayers have been answered.
Okay, so do we want to chat about potential upcoming Nintendo 64 app releases?
Yeah, this was a topic that I put in here because I felt like now that we don't know what's coming up for the Nintendo 64 app, it's this big question mark of, well, I don't think they're just going to stop now. There will be more games, I'm pretty sure. They haven't announced anything, they haven't confirmed anything, but it seems like a given that we will get them. It's just a question of which games from the Nintendo 64 we will get. And I feel like to some degree you have to tamp expectations because there are some games that are less likely than others, even if they were super well liked and popular. Like if it's a licensed game like GoldenEye, I feel like that's a long shot. And I know that there's a lot of rumors swirling around GoldenEye, like maybe Nintendo could work out some sort of deal with both MGM and Microsoft to get that to happen. But working out a deal like that means money, and Nintendo doesn't like spending money. And
Not really.
I feel like it's better to rein in those expectations. The other licensing issue is third-party releases. And a lot of third-party games, I don't think Nintendo would want to have to foot the bill for. They do have third-party games on these apps, but it's usually kind of little stuff that probably wouldn't cost them much. So, and I'm searching my brain right now to try and see if I can think of any major third-party releases on Nintendo 64 that people would be... Oh, Resident Evil 2. That's a good example. I don't see Resident Evil 2, the Nintendo 64 version, coming to the Nintendo 64 app. I don't think that Nintendo would want to pay the money for that, and I don't think Capcom would want to give people another option to buy that when, maybe instead they might buy the Resident Evil 2 remake on another platform. But there are still some other games that I feel like are pretty likely. Super Smash Bros., the original game, seems like it's a pretty good bet. I feel like it's not like people are going to be getting that instead of playing Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Nintendo doesn't really seem concerned about that. They have a Mario Golf game on there. They have a Mario Tennis game on there, even though those are both series that are still on Nintendo Switch. I think there's some rare games that we could get. We got Banjo-Kazooie, so Banjo-Tooie seems like an obvious choice.
Mm-hmm.
Also, rare games that used Nintendo licenses like Donkey Kong 64 and Diddy Kong Racing seem like they're pretty likely. Wave Race 64 is a game that technically used licenses in it, like there was the Kawasaki license used for the watercraft in the game. But I think if memory serves, in earlier releases on Virtual Console for previous platforms, they just kind of cut those references out so that they could use it without the licensing. So similarly, I think Wave Race 64 is a pretty good bet. 1080 Snowboarding is a good bet. Excite Bike 64 is a good bet. If we're looking at previous Virtual Console games that they might bring to this service, Mario Party 2 was on the previous Virtual Console. I don't think 1 and 3 were, but 1 and 3 are also possibilities. Pilotwings 64 is another good one. That was a launch title. There's nothing licensed in it. It's a good game, and it's a Nintendo published game, so I don't see why they couldn't bring that. The fact that Pokemon Snap came out on Nintendo Switch Online tells me that they're not shy about releasing Pokemon games. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, what about Pokemon Stadium? And
Oof.
the thing is, I feel like that would kind of defeat the purpose, because the whole point of Pokemon Stadium was you taking your Game Boy game and bringing your monsters into a 3D arena to fight. And without an actual Game Boy app, there's nothing to do that with. It's kind of pointless. However, there was another big Pokemon licensed game that would be really great to have on the app, and that is Pokemon Puzzle League, which Jen, you would recognize Puzzle League as the puzzle game. That's the puzzle game that Jen really likes, is the Puzzle League slash
Is that
Panel de
really what it
Pon.
is?
Yes, that's what Pokemon Puzzle League is. It's a Pokemon branded version of Panel de Pon. Although if memory serves, I think this one might have had 4-player support. It did something different that was unique. And so, hey, that'd be great to have on the app. And the final one that I feel like is a possibility, I don't know, it's kind of iffy. It's Nintendo owns the rights to it, but they're also not the sole owner to it. And that is Cruisin' USA and Cruisin' World. The creator of the Cruisin' series, who put out Cruisin' Blast, I want to say, I think it was last year or the year before. Excellent, excellent racing game, by the way. Tons of fun, really stupid, but fun. Has basically said he'd love to bring the earlier cruising games to the Nintendo Switch. So clearly there's a will to do this. It's just a question of if Nintendo wants to put the effort and the money into that. So those are my picks. I don't know, Jen, what Nintendo 64 games do you remember that you might like to see on the Nintendo 64 app?
It's really hard for me to say because I didn't have this console.
But you did
Yeah.
play it.
Yeah, I'd like to play Star Fox.
Well, that's already on the app.
Is it really? Okay.
Yep.
Then
One of the
I
best
don't
games
know.
on it, too, I think.
Yeah, well, I really wish there was a sequel or something to the Star Fox games because even now it's still being talked about.
Yeah, we don't have a... Okay, we sort of kinda have a Star Fox game on the Nintendo Switch. The game Starlink has a lot of Star Fox content in it, but it doesn't really play like a traditional Star Fox game. It's more about exploration than it is about kind of the more linear combat that we're used to from Star Fox. I'd like to see a new Star Fox game, but at the same time, earlier this year I reviewed Star Fox Zero, the Wii U game in the franchise, and I don't know. A part of me wonders if Nintendo even still knows how to make a good Star Fox game. That one had elements that were really good, but Nintendo kept insisting on putting just gimmicky junk in the game that kind of messed it up and made it less fun. And it's like, if they could fix everything that was wrong about Star Fox Zero and port that game over, I think that could be a genuinely good game on the Nintendo Switch. But that's contingent on Nintendo actually understanding what was so wrong about that game in the first place and recognizing what it did that was good. And I'd almost rather that they try again in a sequel. But the thing is, I don't feel like that series has ever seen a better game than Star Fox 64. Star Fox 64 was the peak. It was the apex. It was the best game in the franchise. And every other game in the franchise since has been trying to reach that same height.
Okay. Well, yeah, I really don't have any other games I'm looking forward to. Okay. We want to thank all of our patrons on Patreon for contributing. Our Patreon donors are the first ones to gain access to these podcasts. And if you're interested in becoming a donor, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/eShopperReviews. And once again, if you're curious to read about any of the reviews or content mentioned in this podcast, you can find it on the eShopperReviews subreddit, reddit.com/r/eShopperReviews. Once again, this has been Jen Ip.
And Jake McNeil.
We'll see you next month. And in the meantime, we both hope you found this content helpful and enjoyed some good games. Catch you all next time.
Later.